The chill that ran through me had nothing to do with the winter air outside the penthouse windows. It was the chilling finality of betrayal. My husband, Julian Vance, had just finished his monologue. He hadn't bothered to whisper. His voice was clear, confident, and utterly devoid of remorse as he admitted to everything. I sat in the plush velvet armchair, clutching a lukewarm glass of champagne, the same glass he had refilled precisely 5 minutes before the numbness began. Julian, devastatingly handsome even in his moment of villainy, stood by the mantelpiece, looking every inch the corporate god the world believed him to be. "It was never about you, Elara," he'd said, smoothing the lapel of his tailored jacket. "It was about Sterling Technologies. Your family's legacy. It was the key to funding the Obsidian Group. And you, my dear, were merely the convenient lock I needed to pick." The numbness was spreading, starting in my fingertips and crawling up my arms like frost. He had just confirmed the rumors I had dismissed as slander from his rivals, especially Damon Kincaid, the head of Kincaid Industries. Julian had systematically undervalued and liquidated my family's historic tech firm, using the remnants to fuel his own, far shadier operations. The technical term was asset stripping. The personal term was theft. And the other women, he hadn't just cheated. He had maintained 3 entirely separate, fully provisioned lives across the continent, each one convinced they were his one true love. The latest, a bright-eyed scientist he'd targeted to steal rival corporate secrets, was the final, crushing humiliation. He hadn't married me for love or even for power. He married me for the access code embedded deep within my inheritance trust. My breathing became shallow, the effort of inhaling a profound struggle. My vision blurred. "Don't worry, the compound is untraceable," Julian droned, checking his watch. "A simple cardiac event. Very sad. But I needed a clean divorce from the mess you were about to create with your sudden attempts at an audit. Now the trust fund transfers and I am free. Farewell, Elara." He walked toward the door, his shadow long and contemptuous. My body was a useless prison. My mind, however, was screaming a furious oath. "Julian, you stole my life. You stole my name. I will see you utterly, publicly, and personally destroyed." Then, darkness swallowed the opulent room, the cold spreading until it encompassed my entire being. The jolt was immediate and agonizing, like being violently pulled through a knot in reality. I gasped a painful, desperate intake of air, and sat bolt upright. The smell of my own perfume, a scent I had long stopped wearing after Julian deemed it too heavy, filled the air. I was in my childhood bedroom at the Sterling estate, not the modern, minimalist cage Julian had built for us. I scrambled to the antique dressing table. The girl staring back was 5 years younger, softer, less haunted, and wearing the simple, hopeful glow of someone awaiting her fiancé's call. The digital calendar on the nightstand pulsed with the date. September 3rd. The day of the announcement party. The day Julian Vance would publicly secure his final hold on the Sterling family board and present me with the prenuptial agreement I would sign without reading, dazzled by his performance of love. I had been given a reset. I wasn't just alive. I was before. Before the ring, before the vows, before the trust transfer, before the slow, inevitable poisoning of my spirit and my body. A profound, absolute calm descended on me, displacing the terror of the rebirth. The future was not immutable. It was a blueprint. I had 5 years of his actions, his contacts, his fraudulent shell companies, and his mistresses' names. A complete, detailed map of the serpent's nest. I knew every vulnerability. Julian Vance, you should have ensured the poison worked faster, I thought, a predatory smile touching my lips. This time you will not just lose my inheritance. You will lose your entire foundation. The first essential move. I needed an impermeable shield and an unassailable legal weapon. I needed a rival. I needed Damon Kincaid. I threw off the silk covers. The expensive, naive dress Julian had selected for the party hung forgotten on the door. I chose a tailored navy suit, the armor of a woman who was done being decorative. Julian Vance was already at the main gate when I pulled up in my classic restored sedan, the one he always mocked as quaint. He was a picture of practiced charm, leaning against his slick black car, ready to perform the role of the devoted fiancé. He frowned when he saw my attire. "Ilara, darling, where is the coral gown? And you're driving yourself." His voice was still laced with that honeyed control that had once drugged me. I stopped 10 feet from him and met his eyes, not with the gentle adoration he expected, but with cold, hard clinical assessment. "The coral gown is where it belongs, Julian. And I'm driving myself because I am no longer your passenger," I stated. He laughed, a calculated sound of disbelief. "We have guests arriving in 2 hours, Ilara. This is important. Stop indulging your eccentricities. Get back inside and change. I won't be attending your announcement party, Julian." "Because there is nothing to announce," I replied, allowing a sharp, crystalline edge to enter my voice. His veneer of patience shattered instantly. His face darkened. "Don't play games. Sterling Technologies needs this merger announcement to stabilize. You need this, unless you want to spend your life managing dusty old patents. I know what Sterling Technologies needs. And it's not you," I countered, stepping closer. I didn't raise my voice. I simply delivered facts. "I know about the 3 women, Julian. Anya in Geneva, Chloe in Miami, and the scientist Dr. Evelyn Reed, whom you plan to use to acquire Kincaid's new quantum algorithm." His eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. The shock of the specific names was evident. "Slander. Gossip. You've been listening to that fool Kincaid. And I know about the Obsidian Group's shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands," I continued, hitting the corporate jugular. "I know about the falsified reports regarding the Ether Core project, which you intend to use as collateral to leverage billions in institutional loans before the inevitable catastrophic failure. You don't want a wife, Julian. You want a scapegoat and a victim. I decline the role." He finally understood the depth of my knowledge. His face contorted with cold fury. "You cannot do this. If you try to challenge the prenuptial agreement, you'll lose everything. Your family's name will be ruined by the scandal you initiate. There will be no prenuptial agreement, and the only ruined name will be yours, Julian," I promised. "Go home. I've already called the board. I am taking an immediate, indefinite sabbatical to review all outstanding contracts. Any attempts to contact me or my family will be met with immediate legal action from my new counsel." I left him standing there, frozen in a cocktail of confusion and rage, a perfect picture of a man who had just lost control. The drive to Kincaid Tower was tense. Damon Kincaid and Julian Vance were legendary rivals, their feud spanning infrastructure contracts, technological patents, and even a few minor political races. Damon was known for his ruthless corporate efficiency, but also his rigid adherence to ethics, a quality Julian constantly derided as a weakness. I found Damon in his top-floor command center. He looked exactly as I remembered, tall, formidable, with hair the color of midnight and eyes the shade of storm gray, eyes that saw everything. He didn't express surprise when his assistant ushered me in. He simply gestured to a seat, his expression guarded. "Ilara, I must admit, I expected you to be in coral and pearls, accepting Vance's ring, not in a power suit demanding an audience. What can Kincaid Industries do for Sterling Technologies?" I bypassed the corporate pleasantries and got straight to the point, just as I had with Cashin in the other life. Julian Vance is a thief. His firm, the Obsidian Group, is a sophisticated fraud machine. He married me to acquire my family's residual capital to fund a project he knows will collapse. I broke the engagement an hour ago, but he will move to destroy Sterling now. Damon leaned back in his chair, his gaze intense. I've suspected Vance was ethically flexible, but fraud on a global scale? That's reckless. Even for him. It's not recklessness. It's mathematical certainty. And I know the equation. I know the names of the shell corporations, the falsified land surveys for the Ether Core project, and the exact date he plans to use that fraudulent collateral to secure his final line of credit from the Dubai syndicate. I looked at him, feeling the desperate urgency of my mission. Damon, I am here to propose a merger that will give you the legal leverage to destroy your greatest rival, and in return, will give me an ironclad shield. I want you to marry me. Now. He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something unreadable, perhaps disbelief, perhaps grudging respect, crossing his features. A contract marriage. Purely strategic. A corporate strike disguised as romance. Precisely, I confirmed. I offer you the blueprint for Julian Vance's total corporate ruin, saving your quantum algorithm from being stolen, and in return, you offer me the immediate legal and financial protection of Kincaid Industries. I know you once loved me, Damon, but I ask for loyalty first, and partnership second. The revenge is just the necessary cost of admission. Damon was silent for a long, agonizing moment. I saw the calculation in his eyes, the rapid assessment of risk and reward. Then a slow, determined grin spread across his face. The look of a warrior offered the map to his enemy's stronghold. I won't deny the past, Ilara. But I also won't deny a perfect strategic opportunity, he said. His voice deep and resonant. However, like any Kincaid contract, there are non-negotiable terms. This is a real marriage. If we sign this covenant, we are partners in every sense. I will be your protector, your confidant, and your husband. You will fight with me not just for me. And every move we make must be clean, legal, and auditable. We don't sink to Julian's level. Agreed, I said immediately. Loyalty, honesty, and ethical destruction of a fraudster. We marry at the courthouse at opening tomorrow. By noon, Julian Vance's access to Sterling Technologies must be irrevocably blocked. Consider the contract signed, Mrs. Kincaid, Damon replied, rising and extending his hand. Let the dismantling begin. The whirlwind wedding was less romantic and more akin to signing a treaty. By 10 a.m. the following morning, the news hit the financial wires like a shockwave. Vance/Sterling engagement cancelled. Ilara Sterling weds rival Damon Kincaid in private ceremony. Julian's response was immediate and hysterical. He launched a barrage of emergency litigation, claiming breach of contract and demanding the immediate execution of the conditional stock options he had negotiated with the Sterling board. He was met with a wall. Kincaid Industries legal counsel, already briefed by my future knowledge, simply presented the marriage certificate and a filing confirming that all Sterling shares were now held in a new, unassailable Kincaid family trust, rendering Julian's conditional options null and void. He is losing his mind, Damon commented later that day, watching the frantic, uncoordinated attacks Julian was launching. He can't believe he misread you so thoroughly. He didn't misread me. He missed the 5 years of knowledge I carried with me, I reminded him, standing beside him in his office, which now felt like our shared command center. His next move will be the Ether Core collateral. He has to secure the loan from the Dubai syndicate within the next 3 weeks to cover his current losses. If he loses that loan, his entire structure collapses. The Ether Core counterstrike. The Ether Core was Julian's flagship project, a massive infrastructure development built on seemingly useless desert land. I knew, however, that Julian's valuation was based on forged geological surveys that claimed the land contained vast, untapped mineral reserves. We need to acquire the land first, just like we did with the Aegis Peninsula last time, Damon suggested. No, that's too slow. The owner is a conglomerate in debt and will sell to the highest bidder, which will be Julian. We don't acquire the land, we destroy the collateral's value before the bank assesses it, I explained, my fingers tracing the map of the desert property on the screen. Julian used a small, discredited firm called Geotech to generate the fraudulent surveys. They're based in Monaco. I know the name of the junior analyst who fabricated the final report and the server where the original, honest report is stored. Damon's eyes gleamed with respect. That's surgical. You don't just block the blow. You ensure the attacker's weapon disintegrates in his hand. Kincaid Industries' elite cybersecurity team, led by my new husband, initiated a quiet legal investigation into Geoteca's history. They found the analyst, presented him with an overwhelming case of impending fraud charges, backed by the evidence I provided, and offered him immediate, full immunity in exchange for the original, truthful survey. The original survey was clear. The land was useless. Damon's team anonymously leaked the original survey to a minor financial blog, ensuring the information circulated just one day before the Dubai syndicate's final appraisal visit. The syndicate pulled the loan request instantly, citing irreparable reputational risk. This was the first massive corporate wound. Julian Vance was now billions in debt with no path to liquid capital. His Obsidian Group stock plummeted. "He's cornered," Damon said, watching the market indices drop like stones. "He'll go for scorched earth now. He'll look for any leverage to discredit you, Ilara. He'll go after my reputation, which is why we must strike his first. We hit him where his ego is weakest and his legal exposure is highest. His personal life." I provided Damon's lawyers with the names and the stories of the 3 women Julian had used and discarded. Anya Petrova, the Geneva socialite. Julian had blackmailed her family after a failed, exclusive investment in the Obsidian Group. She held the keys to his personal offshore accounts he used to hide his illegal profits. Chloe Davies, the Miami real estate agent. He had forced her into an exploitative non-disclosure agreement while stealing her most sensitive client lists. She had the physical evidence, a locked ledger of his side deals. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the scientist he tried to lure to steal Kincaid's quantum algorithm. She was a woman of integrity and deep loyalty to Kincaid and, most importantly, was furious at the deception. She had all the email evidence of his corporate espionage attempts. "We don't contact them with a threat. We contact them with an offer of ethical justice," I insisted to Damon's legal team. "We tell them we are the Kincaid side of the feud, and we are prepared to fund their legal battles against Julian Vance, free of charge, to reclaim their stolen dignity and assets." The strategy worked with surgical precision. Anya Petrova, driven by a desire to protect her family, filed an official complaint with Swiss authorities, detailing Julian's money laundering activities and providing the account numbers I had given her. Chloe Davies, armed with Kincaid lawyers, filed a massive suit for fraud and emotional distress, submitting the ledger of side deals that linked Julian directly to illegal transactions. Dr. Evelyn Reed, fueled by professional integrity, delivered the entire cache of emails detailing Julian's corporate espionage attempt directly to the Kincaid Industries chief counsel, who then passed them on to the district attorney. The culmination was swift and brutal. Julian Vance was now simultaneously facing an international money laundering investigation, a massive civil fraud suit in Miami, and corporate espionage charges from the DA's office. His reputation, his capital, and his freedom were all under siege. The final encounter. The meeting was arranged by Julian's increasingly desperate and skeletal legal team. Julian, gaunt and broken, waited with his lawyer in a small conference room in the Kincaid Towers annex, a final, humiliating concession of defeat. Damon and I walked in together, a united, unassailable front. Julian looked at me, his eyes full of the desperate madness of a cornered animal. "You," he croaked, his voice raw. "You married him. You destroyed everything. The ether core was salvageable. My life was salvageable. This is all because of your vindictive jealousy." I sat down, calm and composed. Damon's hand rested on my shoulder, a gesture of silent, solid support. "Your life was never salvageable, Julian, because it was built on a lie. And the one thing a lie can't withstand is truth and time," I told him. He slammed his hand on the table. "How did you know? How did you know about the Swiss accounts, about the falsified geotech report, about Evelyn? You were a fool. You were too passive to ever learn those details." I looked him in the eye, delivering the final, crushing truth that would break his spirit forever. It was the same truth I had given to Damien in the other life, the secret weapon of my existence. "You're right, Julian. I was a fool 5 years ago," I admitted. But I had a glimpse of the ending you planned for me. I saw the aftermath of your greed. I saw the poison you planned to use in the champagne, the quiet, clean cardiac event, the cold, final theft of my family's name and my life. His face drained of color. His jaw worked silently. The realization that I was speaking of a future that had not yet occurred, a future he had planned, was a devastating psychological blow. "You're mad," he whispered, the panic in his voice absolute. "A ghost." "I'm not a ghost, Julian. I'm the survivor of your murder," I corrected, standing up. "The destruction of your wealth and your will is the consequence of that choice. The case is closed. Now you will sign the final settlement transferring all remaining sterling assets back to my trust, and you will disappear from my life forever." He signed, his hand trembling, his will utterly broken. He was a broken statue of the man he once was, ruined by the detailed blueprint of his own malice. We left him there, a vanquished king in the rubble of his own deceit. The subsequent months were dedicated to restoration. Sterling Technologies was fully reacquired and merged with Kincaid Industries, becoming a major ethical force in the tech sector, no longer a pawn in corporate games. The contract marriage quietly, beautifully, dissolved into a real, loving partnership. Damon had proven himself to be everything Julian was not: loyal, honest, and completely dedicated to building a stable, righteous future. He had used his power to protect the vulnerable and fight for genuine justice, exactly as he had promised. 2 years after the annulment of my first engagement, Damon and I held a real wedding, a quiet ceremony attended only by family and close friends. I wore the coral gown, the one Julian had picked, now altered and infused with my own agency. It was a reclaiming of the color and the hope I had once prematurely discarded. On our 5th wedding anniversary, we stood on the balcony of our new home, a contemporary light-filled structure that overlooked the sea, a symbol of the clear, unburdened life we had created. Damon wrapped his arms around me, his touch as solid and comforting as the day we signed our alliance. "You're smiling," he noted, his voice a low rumble against my ear. "Thinking about the ether core's collapse." I leaned back into him, inhaling the familiar scent of his expensive cologne and the scent of the sea. "No, I was thinking about the moment I saw you in that office, and the insane courage it took to offer you the blueprint for my revenge. It wasn't insanity, Ilara. It was the purest form of trust. You gave me the most valuable thing in the world, knowledge of the future, and I knew in that moment that you were no longer the girl I loved from afar, but the woman I needed beside me," he admitted. I closed my eyes, the 5 years of knowledge I carried finally feeling less like a burden and more like a badge of honor. I had faced my end and returned to rewrite the middle, not just for revenge, but for the fundamental right to love and be loved honestly. "Thank you, Damon," I whispered, turning to face him. He tilted my chin up, his storm-gray eyes shining with unwavering devotion. "We didn't just dismantle Julian, my love. We built something unbreakable." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and gentle purples. Our future, founded not on lies or necessity, but on the enduring strength of the Kincaid vows, stretched out before us, clear, bright, and gloriously happy. Years. 8 years had passed since I traded a gilded cage for an open sky, and sometimes the sheer, mundane reality of my happiness still took my breath away. The Sterling-Kincaid merger wasn't just a corporate success. It was the framework of a dynasty built on integrity. Our daughter Clara, 5 years old, was in the garden, attempting to supervise the drone testing for a new Kincaid AI project. She was all dark, sharp Kincaid intellect mixed with my own stubborn, inherited resolve. I stood in the library, holding a chipped porcelain teacup, a remnant from the old Sterling manor. The poison Julian had planned to use, the betrayal that defined my death, felt impossibly distant, a nightmare that had belonged to a different woman. Damon entered, smelling of ozone and coffee, carrying a financial report. He settled into the armchair opposite me, scanning the data with effortless focus. "The new European division is stabilized," he reported without looking up. Sterling's quantum encryption is proving invaluable. You were right about the market gap. I'm often right, I replied, a small, genuine smile curving my lips. He finally looked up, his storm-gray eyes warm and full of the easy, profound intimacy that only true partnership can forge. You are. But I still owe the universe a debt of gratitude for delivering a time traveler into my office. I set down the teacup. There's no debt, Damon. You didn't just give me protection. You gave me a future I didn't know how to build alone. I survived my death, but I only started living when I met you again. In a world where Julian Vance was a footnote in the history of corporate fraud, serving his time in a federal pen, stripped of all power, Ilara Kincaid was thriving. She was a CEO, a partner, a mother, and most importantly, she was free. The future, once a detailed blueprint, was now a beautiful, unexpected adventure, written only by their hands.